Welcome, everyone. Good to have you all here. Today, we're having a special webinar hosted here by Plauti in collaboration with RevGenius. So glad you all make it here. Make sure to drop your answers on the icebreaker question on the chat. We're here to make some friends. First, thanks RevGenius for the opportunity, and thanks Gina, our host here backstage, for setting things up for us. I'm Nico Mirema. I work here at Plauti, and at Plauti, we focus on data management solutions, right? So think everywhere from data deduplication, validation, standardization, manipulation, and the topic of today, routing. And for that, I have here the mastermind, the creator, the founder of Super Round Robin, Ed Rolf. So a round of applause for him.
Flattery will get you everywhere, Nico. Yeah, well, so shall I just introduce myself? So my name's Ed. I'm a former CIO, COO, and CMO, and during those roles, I've been a Salesforce customer at least twice, and then over the last 5 years, I have been developing Salesforce apps, including this routing one that we're talking about today.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks, Ed. So for today, we're excited to talk about a big topic, lead routing. I'm sure a lot of you all are familiar with the topic. I'm sure that was one of the reasons you guys clicked on this webinar, right? For those of you that might not be that familiar with it or haven't given it a thought, throughout the webinar, we'll give some tips and tricks, things to consider if you're planning on starting, or maybe consider some other points of views that you might have at the moment. So I'm sure everyone will learn something in that sense. Before I forget, in the chat, also feel free to drop your questions. We'll have a dedicated time at the end to review all those questions, so make sure to drop them. All right. We'll start, so we'll dive deep into out-of-the-box functionalities from Salesforce itself. Some features that can help you get started. As you grow, probably you might need a different solution. The Salesforce functionalities are very useful at the beginning, but as things become a bit more complex, you might be looking into other more robust solutions, right? So we're here to help with that process.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess everyone's here today because we all know that lead management is critical for all sales teams, and apparently there are studies out there that show that organizations with effective lead management can increase revenue by a massive 10 to 20% within the first 6 months of integrating better processes. So focusing efforts here is pretty much a no-brainer for most organizations.
And I'm a sales guy, right? So 10-20% within 6 months, I would sign that every day of the week. So definitely something valuable for everyone. Now, let's start a little bit by explaining some lead assignment rules in Salesforce. To start off, we mean by Salesforce lead assignment rules, we mean routing leads, for example, based on any predefined criteria. So think of maybe geographical location or a source of entry from that lead, maybe a skills on your reps that you want to distribute it, many other options, right? So quick example, if you have a web form that probably captures information from the leads that are on your website, for example, that's going to come into your Salesforce and you want to distribute it evenly to your reps. So that's basically, in short, lead assignment, right? It can get a lot more complex, as we'll see in the process here, but that's a great start for all companies. As I mentioned, as you grow, you might have more reps, you might have new territories, different skills. Maybe you have a team that works the Spanish market, the English market, different countries, Europe, EMA, America, right? All the different options. Those are criteria you can use for routing. But I guess, right, as in general topics with data, the bigger the data is, the more complex, usually a more robust information or a solution you will need for it. So that's what we're here to cover.
Yeah, so I mean, that's right. One of the big challenges that we see when speaking to clients is that the out-of-the-box Salesforce features are designed for organizations that are smaller or have more straightforward and simple needs. And once your team expands or the complexity and sophistication increases, then you have to start worrying about when the reps are out on vacation or otherwise unavailable. You might have to start worrying about varying how you're distributing these leads, and then manually updating lead assignment rules, for instance, is just a huge drain on time and resource. And so we see it more and more that businesses need dynamic lead assignment, like varying the workloads, adjusting for out of office reps, or balancing territories based on changing conditions. And the out of the box lead routing just simply can't handle that level of complexity without quite a lot of manual effort, which is slow and often leads to mistakes.
Agree. Couldn't agree anymore, Ed. And actually, as I mentioned, a sales guy, right? I talk to a lot of Salesforce users. That's a lot of the issues that they see often. So that's what I hear a lot from them. The complexity of routing is definitely a big challenge for them. It's inconvenient and it affects their revenues and their performance, right? So definitely worth to have a look. And if you don't take my word for it, actually, I have to hear some details. The Harvard Business Review did a study that shows that companies are more likely, or 7 times more likely, to have a meaningful conversation with their leads if they're approached within an hour, right? So that just makes that 1 hour gap very important for any company, any organization, to make sure that you take the most advantage of it. Once again, if there's anything I can do to boost my opportunity 7 times, I would sign that any day of the week, right? So definitely another thing to take into consideration. In reality, it might be easier in smaller organizations, keeping that personal touch. In organizations, if you have a manual distribution, that's probably going to limit your chances to reach out to them within an hour. So that's why definitely important to consider a third-party solution or implement your Salesforce functionalities rules to make sure that everything works up to speed, right? In this world, it's a fast-paced world, right? So if you're not quick on your feet, somebody else might take your chances away from you.
Yeah, I mean, so some customers, an hour is forever. I've had customers where literally seconds count. So not an hour, just seconds. So just doing things manually just isn't an option for those guys, and that's where a dedicated routing solution comes into its own, and enables the scalability of those organizations.
Great, exactly. Simplest put it, right? What we just mentioned here. Usually, the bigger the teams, the more complex their processes are, the more advanced the solution that will be needed, right? That's not only on routing, but usually on other topics, right? Whatever topic you mentioned, the larger organizations, maybe they need a more custom solution that can rearrange itself to the complex scenarios, right? Imagine in this case, we started with maybe 2 reps, and then you grow up to several reps, different time zones, different working hours, right, around the world. What if some take holidays? What are you going to do with the routing of it? Changing that all manually, or being up to date with that as a manager that might distribute the leads, it's going to get very challenging. And to do it accurately, well, is that even possible to do it accurately?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, we're talking quite a lot about out of the box Salesforce features versus dedicated solutions, and it just happens to be the world we live in, where the Salesforce provides these out of the box features, but they only take you so far. We're not here to bash Salesforce and their out of the box features. The App Exchange is brilliant. That's why it's there, to fill in these gaps. And you know, the built-in tools are great for the smaller orgs, but we do need to sort of level up, so to speak, when things get more sophisticated. So rather than just talking about this stuff, what we can do now is go over some lead routing scenarios, starting off really simple and then building them up, and then looking at how we might solve the problems as they come along.
Great. Yeah. So yeah, as Ed just mentioned, what we'll do now is basically simulate the growth of a company in 4 different scenarios, and upon those scenarios, we'll be role playing a little bit. I'll be a director, CEO, somebody to take some decisions for the sales team, and Ed will work sort of as a consultant, giving me some tips on how to do it. So through the process, we'll start from a small organizations with a couple reps, grow up to a larger one. I'm sure everyone will be able to identify themselves in one of the different stages, or maybe you've faced those challenges before. If you have, drop in the chat how you solve them. It would be interesting to know more. If you are facing them, well, hopefully you learn something from this process. So as I mentioned, we'll go through this little scenario, 4 different scenarios, and hopefully everyone can relate to it. To start off then, we're going to start pretty simple. We have a small company with a sales manager, 2 regional reps, one for the East Coast, one for the West Coast, as you can see on screen. For now, the leads are coming in via web form. They're assigned to the sales manager, and he then manually assigns them to one of the reps, depending on if they're East or West Coast, right? However, as a sales managers, if there's anyone there in the audience, I'm sure you have other things to do than only routing these leads to your reps. So you won't probably be receiving and leading them straight away as you get them. You probably dedicated some time during the day to schedule them, to route them away. So that already affects your 1 hour gap. So Ed, I'll ask you any suggestions on how to improve this manual process at the moment.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, you'd be amazed at how many people we come across that have a scenario like this, where you've got a sales manager or RevOps manager or operations person that has a few salespeople in a team, maybe 2, maybe 5, maybe 10, and they're manually looking at a list of leads and then assigning them to the appropriate person and doing this a few times a day. And it's amazing how much this is happening. And for something as simple as this, then we can just use the out-of-the-box Salesforce features here. So we would use lead assignment rules, and here we've got a very simple one that just looks at the state code for the lead, and if it matches one of those West or East Coast states, then it will route it to the appropriate sales rep. And a company like this might typically have an IT person that's responsible for making these simple back-end changes. And here we'd ask them to create these rules, and once set up, those leads would get funneled through, and the sales manager wouldn't need to do the manual assignment anymore. And then, yeah, like I said, for the smaller, simple teams like this, these basic rules can suffice. And even though they do have to go into the back end to set up these rules, they're relatively easy to set up as long as there aren't hundreds. And the web to lead feature allows for easy lead capture and then routing through this method to those reps on the ground.
All right, it all looks, I think, pretty straightforward for everyone. As Ed mentioned, it's still all within the out-of-the-box functionalities of Salesforce, so you can get it and implement it yourself. Pretty simple. All right, moving forward to scenario number 2. We had a lot of growth on the West Coast. The West Coast is a bit of impulsive buyers that we love. So shout out everyone in the West Coast in the audience. Now we hired more regional reps right on the West Coast. So we have 3 more. We have 4 in total on the West Coast, 1 on the East Coast. So we're now is the process now is not manually. So the sales manager does have more team. He hired this. Now we have to find a way to not only separate them on the East and West Coast, but on the West Coast, of course, make evenly distributed, right? So that everyone there gets a fair chance of the pie, basically. Additionally, Ed, I would like to ask you if there's a possibility to somehow send an automatic email to the lead itself with maybe a call to action, something that they can interact with one of our reps or with the company itself.
Yeah, sure. So typically, what we see happening in small businesses when this kind of thing happens and the team start to scale, they'll ask the IT person to add those new reps into the lead assignment rules, and then after a day or so of trying to work out how to do it, the IT person will come back and say, actually, if you want to do this, we're going to have to put all the West Coast reps into a Salesforce queue and have the leads go into a queue, and then the reps will have to pull these out of the queue. And this seems like a step backwards, because the automatic and immediate assignment that we were just getting with the lead assignment rules has reverted back to leads going into effectively what is an inbox, and reps having to pick leads out. So there's got to be something better than that. So we can do some things, but with a little bit of customization. So we've gone onto a slide here where you can see in the top right corner, there's a formula field that we're leveraging now. And what that formula field will do is spit out a number. As leads are sequentially coming into the organization, lead will be tagged with 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. And those numbers can then be used within the lead assignment rules to match up with individual reps on the West Coast. So that effectively we've got a very basic round robin thing going on for the regional reps on the West Coast. So this allows us to stay still within the realms of the out-of-the-box features, but with a tiny bit of customization. If anyone wants to know how to do this in a bit more detail, then come back to us at the end, and we can point you to some resources. So that's how we'll deal with that. And then in terms of the follow-up emails or the response emails, then because they're going to individual reps, we don't want just an auto response coming from a generic address. We want them coming from that rep. So what we do is get the IT person to create a flow in Salesforce, and that will send an email to the lead upon assignment of the lead. So that probably, I think that satisfies your requirements at this stage, Nico.
All right, sounds good. And if I understand correctly, it's still all within Salesforce, right? Still all out of the box. Great. So basically, a round robin on the West Coast, making sure everyone gets even distribution. Okay, sounds good. For a moment, I thought we had to go back to manual on the West Coast, but this seems to solve the issues.
Yeah, it often does. It often does go back to manual. As soon as the things start getting complicated, they go, "Oh, we can't do it with lead assignment rules," and it goes back to manual queues. But this is one option you can use to keep it automated.
Great. Yeah, no, I was scared because we were getting some good results, reaching out quickly. So I'm glad it's still automatic. I do have some other questions actually for you. So it all works perfectly. We have the flexibility, but I often hear that Salesforce has some limitations. So far, I haven't really approached them, so that's good. So far, I'm happy. But what I've heard a lot of the times, it's what if there's not much flexibility? Can they offer maybe one of my reps goes on holidays, or if one works faster, is there a way for me to give him more leads, since basically he's just efficient at his work, right? He shouldn't be harmed because of that.
Yeah, sure. So what's happening now is that we're starting to get beyond the realms of what we can do with the out-of-the-box functionality. The solutions we've talked about so far are at the basic end of lead assignment strategies. So we're not taking account in things like rep availability or their workload. And the sales manager also has limited ability, or sometimes no ability, to make any adjustments there. They have to go back to their IT person to go and make those changes. So to do the kinds of things that we're talking about, we will need to step up our game at some point in the future. And this is where we need to move beyond what's offered out the box and look instead to the various app exchange apps that provide these more dedicated and sophisticated solutions.
Gotcha. All right, sounds good. Before I move into purchasing an app exchange, I think we'll give this a try for now. Maybe in the future we'll talk again, Ed.
Yeah. I hope so.
All right. Well, that time came. Fast forward to the to the future. As you can see on screen, the company boosted, right? It's a huge corporation now. Lots of regional reps all over East Coast and West Coast. So I think at that moment you mentioned that we might have to look into a solution. I think has arrived. We face some new challenges on that distribution, so I just wanted to consult with you once more, if that's okay. So, 4 different challenges, as you can see on screen. The first one, when reps are out of office, we have to manually update that lead assignment rule, right? What if they're out of office? We have to basically turn them on, or we have to let the turn them off. Sorry, we have to let the IT person know how to turn them off. Is there a more efficient way to do that than always going to him, or maybe the reps can do it themselves? Adding on that topic, similar with working hours, right? So right now we have the email that is automatically sent to the lead when it's assigned, and that does have a call to action, right? So a lot of the times this lead calls back or reaches back to us, but because we have our working hours, maybe that rep is not working anymore. So the first interaction the lead gets with us is dial in and go straight to voicemail. That's not the best interaction we would like to give them, right? So I was wondering if there's any way to fix some working hours there in that sense. Topic number 3, um, efficient workers, as we mentioned last time, right? Have some very creative, very efficient sales reps that go through their leads faster than the rest. Is there a way to maybe get them some more, make them, well, reward them basically for their good input, for their efficiency, for their dedication to the job? And lastly, I want actually my sales manager to get a little bit his hands dirty, to see the process, try to see if he can catch some flaws from within. So I'd like him to also be getting some leads. So add him to one of the distributions. The only thing is, I would like to limit his input to maybe 2 leads a day. He obviously has other tasks to do. So I was wondering if it can be included, but maybe with a certain cap somehow.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, yeah, these are a few of the many issues that we see coming all the time from growing orgs. And as you guess, this is time now we introduce a more dedicated solution as we reach the limits of the lead assignment rules. So we're going to talk about Super Round Robin here, which is an app exchange app, which it's configured mostly on the front end of Salesforce. So that's the first thing to note, is that you'll no longer need to have an IT person go into the back end to mess around with lead assignment rules. You can have your sales manager do the configuration and changes here on the front end of Salesforce. And this effectively replaces those lead assignment rules. And we can see here on this little screenshot, we've got this simple scenario of leads coming into the organization, and we've got these things called match groups, which are segmenting those leads and then routing those appropriately to people on the East Coast or people on the West Coast, and so on and so forth. And what we can do with apps like this, if you go on to the next slide, Nico, we can set up things like the working hours, so that assignment only takes place when reps are working in their respective time zones, and when they're actually working that day. So you can either have people doing certain days of the week or part-time hours, and you can also use this sort of interface to switch people in and out in terms of their availability. So you've got a bunch of different options here, and then we also have distribution options as well. You talked about being able to give some reps more leads than others. So if you were to use something like this, you can change the weighting of lead distribution by changing that distribution ratio, so that your more senior reps are getting more leads, for example. And you can also introduce capping as well. So there might be certain reasons why you might not want to give someone more than 5 or 10 leads per day, or leads in a particular status. So for example, your sales manager, it's very easy to pop them into one of the teams and then cap them at 2 per day, so they can get a feel for the whole lead process, but without overwhelming their workload. So that can all be done as well without help from your IT person. So it empowers the business side in actually getting stuff done fast, and also gives them a lot more tools in terms of varying and fine-tuning how the records are distributed to the teams.
All right, thanks, Ed. Looks pretty nice, pretty beautiful actually, and seems pretty simple. I think somebody like me who's not very technical should be able to set things like this up. So
Yeah,
that
sure.
looks pretty nice. All right. So far, now we introduced the Super Robin to the mix, right? And we discussed Super Robin. That's one of our solutions, but of course, there's many in the market that can address your challenges. So make sure to have a look at them too. Right, we're here to help. This is the one we are talking, is the one we know the best. So the challenges we see are the ones we usually come against. Now, moving to the last scenario. Actually, the idea of adding the sales manager to the process, to the lead distribution, was a great idea. He actually managed to find out some some cases that we can maybe improve. So what we decided now, there's a lot of leads that come in that are distributed to our teams that are not really fully qualified, right? So there might be missing some information that we need for our sales team to do their job. So what we did is we implemented a qualifier team between the entrance of the lead and the sales team, right? So this team will receive the leads, they will analyze them, qualify them or disqualify them. If they're qualified, of course, they'll go to the sales reps, and the sales rep will do their task of adding them to a cadence, right? However, as soon as the leads are assigned to the qualified team, I would like the email to be sent automatically still, right? So that they can receive it. And then when the qualified team qualifies, sorry for the repetition of the words, when the lead is qualified, it should be auto assigned to one of the sales reps so that they can add them to one of our cadences for the with the sales enablement tool. Is there a way to do that? And then the last thing, we see that the group is growing. I'd like to see a little bit more on the reporting side. Is there a way to report on how quickly maybe a sales rep is reaching out to his leads? A way of reporting on that response time for them, just to see where we at.
Yeah, sure. So this is a nice little example of a multi-stage sales process where you've got a lead going through a sort of a pipeline or a workflow where it's actually touching several different people or several different owners as it goes through that process. And within our app, within Super Round Robin, it's easy to add those qualifier teams. So in the little red box, you can see that we've just added 2 more qualifier teams for the East Coast and West Coast. So just as before, as leads come in, they're created in Salesforce and they're auto assigned now first to a qualifier on either the East or West Coast. And then that qualifier gets the information they need. And when they set that status for that lead to qualified, then behind the scenes, the system will automatically re-trigger Super Round Robin, the routing app, and automatically reassign that qualified lead to the sales rep, the appropriate sales rep, either on the East Coast or the West Coast. So we've got that multi-stage process where our routing app is doing all the work in terms of assigning it to the right person, and once they've done their job, it will assign it to the next person in the chain. And you mentioned sales enablement and sales cadences as well. So that's something that Super Round Robin can do, is as a lead gets assigned to one of the sales reps, it can get automatically added to the appropriate sales cadence. And if you don't know what a sales cadence is, just very quickly, it's almost like marketing automation, but for sales teams. So it enables sales organizations to come up with like a template, a process that might consist of follow-up emails, follow-up tasks, or calls, and in a certain order with email templates already and all automatically done. So as soon as the lead enters a sales cadence, then maybe it will get a follow-up email, and maybe 2 days later something else will happen. Maybe 3 days later a task will pop up for the sales rep to follow up, that kind of thing. So it really helps that sales team level up, and it really helps scaling sales teams as well. So it's really difficult sometimes to make sure you're training all of your salespeople in the same way, but by putting them onto a sales cadence where a lot of the steps are templated, then people are guided through the right sales process at the right time. So we help there by making sure that it goes into the right sales cadence. And when you start getting more sophisticated, you can do clever stuff like split testing sales cadences by using Super Round Robin to put some into one sales cadence and some into another sales cadence. Lots of funky, interesting stuff. And then you said about the reporting as well. One of the things that we can do is apply what's called SLAs, the SLA feature, and you can get some really nice metrics out of this. So they're mostly around how long it takes for the rep to make first contact with the lead. So you've got things like average time to meet the SLA, average time to make first contact, for instance. So you can look at the performance of your team in terms of how well they're meeting those SLAs. And you get a variety of data and information as well. So the chart on the top right there shows us implementing the SLA feature on the West and East Coast teams. And to begin with, they're their response times are pretty lousy, actually, coming in at sort of like 12, 15 minutes. But then because it's being reported and being measured, these guys are getting faster and faster, and over a couple of weeks, they're getting it down to 2 or 3 minutes. And so this shows how you can use tools like this to provide actionable and useful data for actually managing performance of your teams and ultimately improving the bottom line for your organization as well. So you've got other charts as well. If you do one more, Nico, you've got your charts that show leaderboards and seeing who's doing really well, who's not doing so well, and who's missing SLAs, that kind of thing. So as you move from the sort of more basic out-of-the-box features to the more dedicated solutions, it comes with more sophistication in terms of reporting and the ability to come up with information that helps you actually increase your bottom line and make your teams perform better. So I think hopefully that meets the requirements for those scenarios there, Nico.
Yeah, definitely. This looks beautiful. We can now track how everyone's doing. We have the qualified team, emails going automatically. All seems to be working perfectly. They're automatically added to the sales cadence, so it's all working smooth. That's what I love to hear. All right, guys. That was a bit of the story of the growth of what we typically see with a lot of Salesforce users and organizations. Different stages of how they grow, how they implement new teams, how they get new requirements, new criteria, how they want to continue reporting. So that wraps up the little growth trajectory of a company. And we're getting close to the end. So if there's something we want you guys to take with you after this, it's definitely what you can see on screen, right? Before you leaving, make sure to have a read at them. We'll be discussing them with Ed Tier 2, of course, give you a conclusion. So to start off, out of the box functionalities from Salesforce, it's a great place to start, right? You have, for small organizations, you have all what you need included in your Salesforce package. So if you're a smaller company, you can for sure adapt it to your needs. Once you start growing, you might be looking into more advanced solutions, make sure that it fits your requirements. There are many solutions, as I mentioned, that can help. We're familiar with Super Round Robin, so that's the one we've showed you through the presentation itself, and it can help you optimize. It can help you route your leads. As you see, we went from 2 sales reps company to thousands of records, so it's scalable. It will help you grow, no matter how complex your data is. It will help you lead your lead distribution. I hate to be the guy with the numbers again. According to Salesforce themselves, having automated workflows can help. Ensuring your leads that are assigned can improve the lead response time by 27%. Right. So, if you have this workflow, if you have something like Super Robin set up, that will boost your chances of reaching that 1 hour gap. And as the last time, I'll say it, as a salesperson, I'll sign that every day of the week. So make sure you get it ready.
Yeah. So yeah. Thanks everyone. I think that just thinking back through those scenarios, they went through some levels of complexity, but it was still fairly simple in terms of how we segmented it. East Coast, West Coast. It's worth pointing out that you could segment your records based on any fields on your lead record, even parent records. So it can get a lot more complex than that. But obviously, we didn't want to overwhelm you guys today. But the key points are, the sales managers, RevOps managers, you've got full control over lead distribution without needing to rely on back-end people. And you're able to manage availability, you're able to manage workloads and balance workloads, cap people, and introduce SLAs and get that great reporting. It's all streamlined by an app like Super Round Robin, and obviously it all improves your lead follow-up efficiency and hopefully sales and closing deals. So we covered those few scenarios. Hopefully you saw maybe something similar to what you're doing now in one of those scenarios. But obviously, if you've got questions, then we're more than happy to help you with making your processes a lot more efficient.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ed. I think this brings us close to the end. I think for now, we'll welcome any questions. So drop them on the chat. We're here to review them. If there's any questions, we'll go through them. Let's see.
Yeah, we've got one from Charlie. So shall I read this out? So yeah, so Charlie asks, are the sales cadences an integration with Salesforce, or are they super round robin functionality? So sales cadences are part of a Salesforce feature called Sales Enablement. So if you're interested, look up Sales Enablement in Salesforce, and the cadences are part of that functionality. And super round robin, that just simply integrates with the sales cadences. So hopefully that answers you, Charlie.
Yes. Let's see. Any other questions coming in? Maybe give it a couple seconds, I guess, Ed, and
yeah, sure.
Just to help with the icebreaker, Ed, do you have any song in repeat at the moment?
Me? No. I should have thought about this. No, I don't have anything on repeat. I just have random things playing.
Okay.
Much to my family's disappointment, they ask me, "What on earth is this?" And I say, "I've got no idea. It's just what Spotify is spitting out." Yeah.
All right.
So,
let's see.
Who's that? Jelly Roll's new album, Jelly Roll. Gosh.
Jelly Rolls. Okay. Make sure to hear that after this.
Yeah, I don't think we've got any more questions right now, do we?
I think no questions are coming, so let's wrap it up, I think. So as a last,
sure.
This might not be the reason you're here, of course, right? We're here to create some thought, make sure that you understand your whole process. Think about what you're doing at the moment. So make sure to, have a look at it and see what the possibilities are. What stage of that growth are you in? How complex are your situations at the moment? But of course, you're not alone. We're here to help, right? Me, Ed, the Plauti team, Super Round Robin team are here to help. Make sure to visit our website if you want to ask any questions. We're there to help. We can give some trial periods. You can test the solution yourself and see how it might fit your needs. Any last comments you want to add, Ed? I think that covers it.
No, just like to say thanks to anyone that might still be here. Yeah, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Enjoy your day.